Hey, it's Boo Ray Perry from Tampa, Florida, and today we are going to compare the Fuji X-H2 and the Fuji X-T5 to find out which of these cameras is the right one for you. All right, this is going to be an in-depth video. Before we get started, let me just say, if you're new to the channel, the way that my videos work is that I try to give you all the information that is necessary. And in this video, I'm going to go down and really hit some points for this thing. But overall, what I try to do is convey my feelings about the gear that I talk about. I'm a professional photographer. I live in Tampa, Florida. I've been doing this for years and years and years. So there's plenty of channels out there that will break down every single individual spec for you. What I try to do is give you more opinion and attitude from a professional photographer to help you kind of, sort your way through this stuff. So today we're going to talk about the X-T5 and the X-H2. Now I have the X-H2. I just bought this one about a month ago, maybe, I guess about a month ago. And before this, I was shooting with the X-T4. So I don't have an X-T5 with me, but I've been shooting with the X-T4 for a couple of years, and I've read all the specs on the X-T5. So I can give you a pretty good comparison of these two cameras and really talk about why I've chosen the camera that I've chosen. Because let me tell you, it was tough. I bought the X-H2, and then like a week later, they announced the X-T5. And I thought, ooh, maybe I made a mistake. Maybe I should have, maybe I should send it back. Maybe I should go to the X-T5. But as it turns out, no, I'm staying with the X-H2. And I'm going to tell you why I'm staying with the X-H2 and why you should as well, or not. Because the reasons I'm staying with this camera may not be the best reasons for you. All right, let's get started. So I've got a list here on my computer. I made a list here of notes, which I usually like to do when I'm making videos because I don't like looking away from the camera. But I want to make sure I didn't leave anything out. So the first thing I want to do is talk about what these two cameras share. So if you get the X-H2 or you get the X-T5, here's what you're going to get that's the same in both of those cameras. They both have the same sensor, which is the brand new sensor from Fuji. It's a 40 megapixel sensor. It's actually a 40 megapixel, 40.2 megapixel sensor. Now the old sensor was 26. This is now the largest sensor that you can get in an APS-C camera. And I can tell you that it's fantastic. And the best part is that you can crop away so much of your image and still have usable real estate. So I almost hoped that they wouldn't put that sensor in the X-T5 because it would have made this a no-brainer for me. I wanted that bigger sensor. I wanted to be able to crop away stuff, but they did. so they have the same sensor. You're going to get the same images. They both have the pixel shift multifocus feature, which up until now has only been featured in their G series cameras, their medium format cameras. And that's where the camera takes a series of pictures. I think it's 6 different pictures where they just a little bit shift of the pixels in each one, and then they combine them to make one giant file that's 160 megabytes. It's pretty cool, and I haven't even done it yet. I haven't tried it yet because I just haven't had a situation where I thought I needed it. But it's a cool little feature, and it's in both cameras. They both have the same autofocus system, so you don't have to worry about that. They both have the same burst shooting modes. They shoot the same. They have the same ISO range, so one of them will not work better in low light than the other one. They have the same shutter speed ranges. They work the same speed with their shutter speeds. They both have IBIS. They both have the internal stability control, both of them. So one of them can't be held handheld better than the other one. And they both use the same batteries, although the X-T5 is rated to have a better battery life than the X-H2. They say you can get somewhere around 60 more pictures with the X-T5 than you can with the X-H2. 60 pictures more, not that big of a deal. All right, so that's the thing that they all have in common. These two cameras are identical in that respect. So let's talk about some differences. The biggest difference right off the bat is going to be the thing we're going to talk about last. And that's going to be the ergonomics and the way the camera looks. So don't worry, we're going to get to that because that's a biggie. But the other really big difference between these two cameras is in the video department. The X-H2 is geared to do video at a bigger level than the X-T5 is set to do. So to get into the specifics, with the X-T5 you get 6.2K video, and with the X-H2 you get 8K video. Okay, well that's great, 8K video. If you need 8K video, You know, well, what are you shooting that you need 8K video? Maybe you need it, maybe you don't. The X-H2 has a larger buffer, which helps when it comes to video. It also can take an external cooling fan. If you look on the back of this camera, these two little holes right here, you can put this external cooling fan that sits right here and keeps the camera cool while you're shooting video. So if you're a videographer, that's great. It has full-size jacks on the back that the X-T5 doesn't have. So it has a full-size HDMI output jack on it, and it has a full-size 3.5 millimeter microphone jack right here on the side. So this is, I say this is the X-T4, of course, but the X-T5 is a great video camera. Good job. It does most of what you need to do. The X-H2, that's where you really kick it up a notch. Things like having the dedicated ports and the bigger ports. If you're a video shooter, if you're buying a camera that you want to do a lot of video, then you absolutely want to lean towards the X-H2. But you also you want to go take a look at the X-H2S. Because from what I've read and from what I've heard, they say that's actually the one that you want for shooting video is the X-H2S because it's faster. So if you're a video guy, good. Now, I'm not. And remember, I told you when I do my channels here, I just talk about stuff that applies to me and give you my opinion. So I can tell you that I don't care about video. If neither one of these cameras had video capabilities at all, I'd be fine with that. Because I'm a stills photographer. I'm not a video photographer. So that's just really not a big deal. All right, what's next? The viewfinder. The viewfinder is different on these two cameras. The X-T5 has the same viewfinder that the X-T4 had. This is a 3.68 million dot OLED electronic viewfinder at 0.75 magnification and a 100 frames per second refresh rate. You get all that? Are you taking notes? With the X-H2, you get 5.76 million dots. You get a 0.80 magnification, and you get 120 frames per second. Is that a big deal? No, not really. I mean, I was shooting with the X-T4. It had the same one as the X-T5. It was fine. But I will say that when I picked up the X-H2 for the first time and I used it, you notice it. It wasn't quite as big as the first time I saw high-definition TV, but it was that sort of a, like, when I looked through, I was like, oh, wow. Look at that. Look how clear and crisp that is. So you will notice the better viewfinder in the X-H2 compared to the X-T5, but it's not a deal killer. I can't imagine anybody saying, oh, that's the whole reason I got this camera was because of the viewfinder. The two cameras take different video cards, which I find annoying, but okay. Points to the X-T5 for this. The X-T5, just like the X-T4 before it, both take the same video cards and the same two video cards in the two slots that they have. Both cameras have two slots. So they both take the UHS-2 cards, standard video cards, standard memory cards that everybody uses. But the X-H and the X-H2 and the X-H2S, they have two slots. One of them is a UHS-2 slot, and the other one is a CF Express Type B slot. And I'll show you what that looks like. So, like, here's your standard memory card that you see in every camera. And that is your CF Express Type B card. Why? Well, I think mainly for video. It's a faster card, and they want a faster read rate to the card, and this camera is set up for video more than the X-T5. I'm not a guy who cares about video. So for me, this is actually a downside because I don't really care about video that much. And now I have to buy new cards and I have to buy a card reader. So this right here will add $200 to the cost of the camera, at least, depending on how many of these cards you bought or need to buy. So if you're an event shooter and you need 2 or 3 of these cards, now you're talking about adding quite a bit of a cost to this camera. So that kind of sucks. But if video is your thing, if you love video, you really want the best video you can get from a camera, from a Fuji camera, well, then you're just going to have to expect to have that sort of a card because those are the cards you're seeing in the high-end video cameras now. Okay. Here comes the big one, the body. All right, I have a list of notes because I didn't want to leave any of this out. Because if you've watched this channel and you see my other videos, you know that ergonomics are a really big deal to me. That I am an event shooter. I do a lot of weddings. I do bar mitzvahs. I do corporate things. And I will many times have my camera in my hand and on my hip or around my neck for 6 or 7 or 8 hours a day. So how the camera fits in my hand, how I hold it, how it works in my palm, these are all very important to me. This is my tool, and it needs to work well in my hand. So let's just go down the list. The biggest change, of course, is if you get the X-H2, you are going to get the PASM dial, right? What we call the PASM dial. You get the one dial right here, one dial to rule them all. Whereas if you get the X-T5, you get all the dials, and everyone loves these dials. Oh my goodness, everyone loves these dials, and I love them too. When I first got my XT cameras, I was like, this is the best thing in the world, and you've got these cool dials up here, and it's all tactile, and you can move them, and that's great. Love them, love them, love them. The X-H2, they took away the click. I actually made a video about this on my channel. These two dials right here, these two command dials, you could click them, and they would change what they do. So basically, it was like having 4 dials. You could turn this and click it, turn it, and do something different, right? The X-T4, you can click them. The X-T5, you can click them as well. Click and do, click and do. Now, it's my understanding the reason that they stopped the clicking on the X-H2 was that they wanted to make it even more weather resistant. So it's possible that the X-H2 series is more weather resistant than the X-Ts because they got rid of the clickable dials. They got rid of the clickable dials, y'all. So that could be a big thing. And I thought it was going to be a big thing for me, but then it turns out that it isn't. And here's why. This clickable dial, when I'm working in manual mode, this is my aperture and this is my shutter speed. And if I need to change my ISO, I would click it and change my ISO. That's the way it was on my X-T4 and the way it would be on my X-T5. Now, this is my aperture and this is my shutter speed. And if I need to change my ISO, I just go click and then I change my ISO. So instead of it clicking here, I now have to go here. Now, that's a movement, right? That's an extra click. Before it was right here. That's convenient, but I'll get used to it because I shot Canon before I shot Fuji, and that's exactly the way Canon worked. As a matter of fact, it took me a long time to get used to not doing that every time I wanted to change my ISO. So I'll get used to it. You know, that's just a thing. It's not like I suddenly have to go into a menu system. They've offered us a dedicated ISO button right there on the camera to make it easy, which is something you don't have on the X-T5. Also, a dedicated white balance button right here. So I can change my white balance from here, which I couldn't do on the X-T4. I had to go to the menu system for that. Now I can change my ISO with this click, and I can change my white balance with that click. So I miss the clickables, but it's really not going to be that big of a deal when it's all said and done. Then there's the huge one. The X-H2 has a full flippy screen. So you can flip it around like this. This is fantastic when you are doing selfie video. And it's fantastic when you are setting up for a portrait session or a headshot session. So I am looking down here instead of looking at you. A portrait session or a headshot session, and you want to do a test shot. Being able to set this on your camera and then step back and see yourself and frame yourself up and take a test shot, that's wonderful. Because so many times in the past when I would do it with my old camera, I would just go over there and stand and just hope that I was in the middle, hope that I was where I was supposed to be. So that's nice. Now what the X-T5 did was, because the X-T4 had a flippable screen as well, but the X-T5 went back to the screen that they had in the X-T3, which is very similar to the one that they have in the X100V. So it flips up like this, and it flips down like that. But it does not flip out. And there are people who love this. Why? Why don't you want the flip out? Well, here's why. Because if you're working and you want to hold the camera over your head, you just flip it out like this and tilt it down and go over your head, right? But if you are using a flip out screen and you want to go over your head, you've got to flip the whole screen out to the side and then go up. And this I think this just makes people nervous. I know it makes me nervous. I'm always afraid I'm going to knock it off whenever I pop it out. Especially when you're going low. If you got to go low with the camera, being able to just go like that, oh, I want to go low, no problem. Low. Now I'm low, no problem. Whereas with this one, I want to go low. Okay, got to pop it out. Now I go low, and now I got this thing here. And if your strap is here, now the strap's in the way. So, yeah, I get it. I do. I absolutely get it. That having the screen that doesn't flip around but does go high-low is cool. But I like having the flip out for when I'm doing portraits and stuff like that. So it's really about what's going to work for you. Which one of those two screens is going to work for you. All right, let's talk about the actual screen itself. The X-H2 has a higher resolution. I've got it written down here. 1.62 million dots is what you get on the X-T5. 1.84 million dots, which is the highest of any Fuji camera, is what you get on the X-H2. I really don't think you're going to notice that difference. It's not going to be that big of a deal. I'm telling you because it's there, but I don't think it really should factor into your decision at all. Other big differences are, and this is kind of a huge one, you can put a battery grip on the X-H2. You cannot put a battery grip on the X-T5. This is clearly an example of Fuji trying to come up with ways to differentiate the two cameras from each other. Because you could put a battery grip on the X-T4. So they just took away the ability to put a battery grip on the camera? Why would you do that? Well, I think they did it because they realized the two cameras were too close to each other. Right? So what are we going to do? Well, we'll change the back screen. We'll make it so it can't do video as well as the X-H2. We'll take away the battery grip. This is how we will justify that this camera is less expensive than the X-H2. So you can't put a battery grip. Now, I don't have a battery grip on my cameras, so that doesn't really affect me. But still, I like the idea that I could if I wanted to. And I'm thinking about actually getting one for the X-H2. We'll see. Because I'm waiting to see what third-party grips are going to come out, add-ons are going to come out for the X-H2, because I need more grip on my camera. And if I can't get a good one that's just a grip, then I will buy and try the battery grip to give me more to hold on to. So no battery grip is kind of a weird choice by Fuji that they didn't include that, and they just chose not to include that. Now, oh, by the way, if you're curious, you get 1,760 frames in economy mode. So if you have a battery grip on the X-H2, 1,700 frames before you have to change your battery, which is pretty good. Now, here's another thing they did. The X-T5 is smaller than the X-T4. It's not hugely smaller. Is that right? Can you say hugely smaller? It's not incredibly smaller, but it is in fact smaller, and I actually looked it up. And it is 2 millimeters shorter, and it is 5 millimeters less wide. So if you think this is a small camera, the X-T4, if you get the X-T5, it's even smaller. And that's important, because we're going to talk about ergonomics now. Here we go. This camera and this body, the X-H2, if you look at this, this is a pistol grip with a trigger forward. And you see where my hand goes. And you see where this goes, right? That is made for shooting and holding all day long. This, on the other hand, you have to pull this finger back to here. Instead of it being here, it's here. And way back when I was considering switching to the X-T3, when I was still shooting Canon, I made a video about this. This was like the single thing that kept me from changing, was that I didn't like the ergonomics of the camera. I still don't. I love the way they look, but ergonomically, they're not the best camera to have in your hand all day. Well, that's not the problem with the X-H2, because the X-H2 is specifically built to be in your hand all day with a trigger forward. That's a big deal. The camera itself is bigger. If you have big hands, it fits better in your hands than the X-T5 does or the X-T4. Like the X-T4 has always been small to me. You can see I added on an aftermarket grip just so I couldn't get a grip on this camera. I had to get an aftermarket grip or else I just felt like I was going to drop it all the time. Well, the X-T5 is even smaller than the X-T4. So So I can only imagine how that's going to feel. That's a big, big deal for me. Hey, it's pre-recorded Blu-ray here with a quick reminder to be sure and check out my podcast. It's called Photobomb. It's available anywhere that podcasts are found. I guarantee you will have a good time. Give it a listen. Also, join my group on Facebook. It's called Pro Photo Talk with Blu-ray Perry. It's a great community and a great place to go if you want to talk to fellow photographers, ask questions, have a good time, and like and subscribe to my channel because that helps to keep this channel alive. And the main thing that keeps this channel alive is my gear page. If you go down into the description and you look for my gear page, you will find links to all of the gear that I use, both professionally and when I travel. And if you click on one of those links, you buy something, I get a couple of dollars, and it helps me to keep this channel alive. So we've gone through each thing. We've talked them all. So let's just do a summary and break down the main differences between these two cameras that are important, or at least important to me. And we'll figure out which one's best for you, right? We'll figure out which one's going to be the right camera for you and what you want to do it with. So I've got a list. This is more preparation than I've ever done for any video, probably, that I've ever made. So first of all, a lot of the technical stuff that comes with the X-H2 is stuff that I don't need. So like it's got all the video stuff. It's got the HDMI jacks. It's got the mic thing. It's got all. I don't need any of that. That's really not going to make a difference to me. There may come a day when I do. There may come a day when I need to shoot some video, and I'm glad that it's got those ports and everything, and that'll be nice to have. But it's not something that's going to make me be like, ooh, oh, I forgot to mention the other big difference between these two cameras. This one is $200 more. So the X-H2 will cost you $200 more than the X-T5. Right now, this one runs $19.99, and the X-T5 runs $17.99. So $200 is what you're paying for what you get with this camera. Is it worth the $200? And is this the camera you want? All right. So all the extra stuff that you get for video is lost on me. The CF Type B card is annoying. I have to buy a new card. I have to buy a new reader. I have two different cards now on the camera. That's annoying to me. I don't like that. I'll never add the cooling fan. I may not ever add the grip. So these are all big things that make this camera different, and yet none of them are really going to affect me. So that makes you lean towards the X-T5. However, with the X-T5, being able to flip the screen out, that makes a difference. When I'm shooting portraits, I'm shooting headshots, being able to flip the screen out so I can take a picture of myself, so I can set up my scene, that's a big deal. Also, I mean, I do all my own headshots, and I just do them by flipping the screen out. So that, that's a big deal. If you do any selfie video, that's a huge, huge deal. So as much as I like the screen that just flips out, up and down, I like that. It's not practical for me as much as the flip out screen. So that's points to the X-H2. Now, this is going to be controversial, but the PASM dial, it's actually a better way to work your camera. Yeah, it is. I'm sorry. Let me give you an example. Let's say I'm shooting with the X-T5. And let's say that I'm in auto mode. All right? I'm in auto mode. I've got my shutter speed in auto. I've got my ISO in auto. And I'm using my aperture here, and I'm controlling my own aperture. So I'm in aperture priority, basically. And now let's say I want to switch out of aperture priority, and I want to go to full manual mode. Okay, so I unlock this dial and I turn it to C. And then I unlock this dial and I turn it 2 clicks to T. So there's 2 unlocks, 2 clicks on one side and 1 click on the other side for a total of 5 clicks that I have to do to get from auto, aperture priority, to manual. Got that? 2 dials, 1 click on one dial, 2 clicks on the other dial, and I got to unlock them both. Now, let's say I'm in the same mode with the X-H2S, and I want to go to manual, unlock, 1 click, I'm there. What does that mean? Well, 2 clicks versus 5 clicks, not that big of a deal, Blu-ray. It's not that big of a deal, except I can do this one with the camera to my face much easier. If I'm shooting, I can just go click, and if I go the wrong way, I'll know it instantly. Because if you go, and I can just go the other way. So I click, click. But with this one, whenever I was switching between modes, I never, ever did not take the camera away from my face. I always took the camera down so I could turn the dials where they needed to go. And I had to remember where to turn the dials because I can't see the dials without my reading glasses on. And so I'm shooting through here without my reading glasses. I could never read what was on the dials anyway. So for me, it was memorization. I had to remember it was 2 clicks one way with one dial and 1 click one way with the other dial. And the truth is, the PASM dial is just easier. You know, it's just 1 click to get where you want to go. And this is not nothing. There's 7 presets. Look at the presets right up here. There's 7 different presets on this camera. So I can set up 7 different presets. I can set up one that's just for headshots in my studio where I've got the white balance set where I want it to be and everything else is set where I want it. I can set up one for working outside. I can set up one for working inside in dark rooms. So I don't have to move all my stuff around hardly at all. I can just go preset, preset, preset. You can set the preset to whatever you want. You can name it whatever you want in the menu system. That's kind of big. Not as cool. It's not as cool looking as this, right? We know that's true. We know that's true. Here's another little thing. If you do shoot video, if you want to change to movie mode, the movie mode is here, right there. On the Fuji X-H2, it's got its own dedicated button right by this trigger. So if you want to go to quick movie, you just go boom, and now you're in movie mode. Boop, like that. Is that really a big deal? This versus, well, yeah, it is. Because you see, I'm loosening my grip to reach for this. I would not try and go to movie mode without holding it in my other hand. I mean, you're going to hold it in the other hand anyway. But my point is, it becomes a movement of your hand. Whereas with this one, you can just do it, right? It's not a movement of your hand. So the PASM dial is, in fact, easier. It's not as pretty. Not as attractive, but it's easier. They've moved other things too on the back of the camera. The joystick here, that's a thumb down, right? I want to move the joystick, I got to go here to get to it. On the Fuji X-H series, the joystick is there. It's just a little shift to the left, not down here, where I have to move my, this is what's holding the camera in place. And when you go here, you're now having to move, you're loosening your grip on the camera. But with this camera, nope, it's right there. You keep this part tight. There's other little differences between the two cameras as well. But that's the bulk of them. So having done this whole video and having had you look at all of this stuff, you may be saying to yourself, Boo-Ray, I don't see how you pick between these two cameras. I really don't. Because they both have such strong features. And that's the great thing about these cameras. They do both have really, really strong features. So what's important to you? That's what we're going to go with. So let's start with the most important things. Number 1, ergonomics. If you are a person with large hands and you need a camera you can really get a grip on and a camera you're going to hold all day, then you should go with the X-H2 because it is bigger, the grip is better, it holds better. Hands down, it is a better grip, and that can be a game changer for you. So, yeah, that's your camera if the grip is really important to you, if you have large hands like I do. If video is important to you, the X-H2 is also your camera. Bigger grip, easier to hold, better video, flippy screen, bam, all that stuff is great for you. When do you want the X-T5 then? What's the X-T5 for? Well, you're going to save $200. That's nice. You're also going to get the ergonomics of the X-T5. And that's nothing to shirk. I mean, Fuji cameras are beautiful. And I like to say that I like a camera that makes me want to pick it up. That's one of the reasons I have so many videos about the X100 series on my channel. I've owned 3 of these cameras. You want to pick this camera up. And part of the reason is because of these big dials. So if you're a person who loves the big dials, get the X-T5. You're not going to be disappointed. The great thing is no matter which one of these 2 cameras you get, you're not going to be disappointed. But I will say that if you can't decide between the 2, and money is the problem, for $200 to get a better LCD screen, a better viewfinder screen, a flippy screen for doing selfies and stuff like that, better ergonomics, a better grip. I think better weather sealing as well. $200. I mean, even if you buy new cards and a new reader, you're still looking $300 or $400. That is not a big jump to go from the X-T5, which is a fine camera, to what is admittedly the very best camera that Fuji's ever made. You're getting the very top camera that Fuji makes, and it's like a $200 more for the camera plus some cards. Right? Why? Sure. That's where I'm going. That's what I'm going to do. So that's what I did, because I decided that ergonomics were important. And other little things I like too, like this screen right here is fantastic, because even when the camera's turned off, the screen gives you information. So even when the camera's off, as it is now, I can just pull this out of my bag and glance at it and see how many shots I have left, how much recording time I have left, do I have 2 cards in the camera, and what my battery life is. I can't do that on the X-T5 without turning the camera on and looking at the screen. Another thing that I like about these cameras is because the flippy screen, you can flip around the screen like this so it's completely protected. You can't do that on the X-T5. Just like on the X100, the screen is always visible. I like being able to protect the screen. So that's my camera of choice, the X-H2. I'll be shooting with it for a while, and you'll probably see a lot of videos about it as I work out the kinks and figure out how to get the best things out of it. But for now, I think the value in this camera is unbelievable. For $2,000, for only $200 more than the X-T5, which is brand new as well, you can get the top of the line camera. It's hard not to do that. At least it's hard for me. I'm very much a value-oriented guy. So, all right, listen, in the comments down below, let me know what you think, because I love these discussions. I love talking about cameras. So let me know what you think. Let me know which of these 2 cameras you would choose, and let me know why. All right, because I love to find out why other people think the way they do, how they think different than me. So be sure and make those comments down there and let me know. And also, if I missed something important between these 2 cameras, which is almost a guarantee that has happened, let me know in the comments and let everybody else know as well. Thanks for watching.